Yo, what's good? Back in the nest. I'm your guide Q. Let's check out some neckbeard stories. Alright, this seems gross. A coworker asks me out right after I turn 18. For context, I, 19 female, worked at a recently bought out southern grocery chain from ages 17 to 18 as a cashier. I turned in my 2 weeks after I wasn't transferred to another department, which is important later. The neckbeard, late 20s male was a coworker working in the produce department. I was really shy when I worked at this store, and my friends have told me that my general appearance, borderline emo, baby face, and commonly mistaken for someone much younger, is literal bait for creeps. I low-key agree, as I have a lot of these stories, though this one was the worst. I'm not as shy now, as the job eventually taught me to not care and be myself, I guess, lol. I was training for bakery on and off, which shared a prep room with produce. Now, let's begin. Characters: me as myself, cashier at a grocery store, P, neckbeard, typical anime nerd / coworker. Main story: I turned in my 2 weeks, and on the next to last cashier shift, about a month or so after I turned 18, I was approached by P as I was sweeping the front. He pulls me aside and asks me out in the classic catch dinner request. What is a classic catch dinner request? Let's catch dinner. I guess that sort of thing. I guess that's a classic. I had severe anxiety and a mild eating disorder at the time, and I remember the moment he asked me, I felt like throwing up, lol. Anyway, I thought he meant as friends, since he was almost 30 and I had just turned 18, right? He had known me since I turned 17, right? Yeah, because I wasn't sure if you had a boyfriend. Fuck, at the time I was asexual, so I was like, no, and he kinda gets excited until I tell him, no, I don't want to go out with you, in the nicest, shyest way possible. Is it because I'm fat? Huh? That's your first thought? Not that I'm 10 years younger and that I'm barely legal? Now, P was an overweight man with a high-pitched voice and a balding head, and I was way smaller than him. I mean, yeah, I guess. Of course I didn't want to say that. I was scared to death and about to keel over. No, I'm just not ready. Oh no, I'm not ready. Oh, that's bad. Oh god, creeps like this just capitalize on that shit so badly. So he walks away with the idea that one day I may date him, which I let him. My mom picked me up that day, and I told her that I mentioned the age gap, and she was pretty mad, lol. Now, if you're like, oh, he doesn't seem too creepy, nobody's like, oh, he doesn't seem too creepy. Anyway, Exhibit B, my friends. Oh, this is gonna be bad. 1. I can pick you up. So one day my coworker G, 24 female ? Called me, and after some anxiety I pick up. It's P using her phone because she had my number, and he says that he needs someone to help him in produce that day. My day off, by the way. Sorry P, my mom has to drive me. I can ask her, but I can come pick you up. What? Heck no, I am not getting into a stranger's car. I was already creeped out by this guy too. I'm glad I said no, lol. He had also asked out G, who was married and even smaller than me, so yeah, he had a type. 2. Produce training shift. Because bakery and produce shared a prep room, when I had occasional bakery shifts, I also semi-worked with P. But one day I worked with him directly as he had asked the manager to let him train me for it, which was odd because I showed no interest in produce. Anyway, the shift was awkward and he tried touching me a lot to show me how to cut fruit. I left early. 3. Helping on the register. Produce floor was right behind the registers, and I was on 5 or 6 a lot as a night shift cashier. So P would frequently talk to me on register and was sometimes put on one, and he always talked to me and some of the other underage girls. Since I left, he has found my new workplace, small town, and came in almost every week, gone through my register recently. That's the worst part in my opinion. So yeah, that's my short neckbeard story, lol. Sorry if it's not very interesting, ha 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 ha. So I honestly feel like a lot of these other occurrences like could seem normal-ish, but it's like all like the context and like actually being there in the moment. Like it feels like a lot of the stuff, especially the, touching you a lot when showing you how to cut fruit and trying to give you rides and stuff. Like it feels like he's just trying to get closer and closer to you, which is a red flag since he asked you out the second that you turned 18. Like it feels like just one of those situations where if there wasn't an arbitrary line of legality, he would have been hitting you up way earlier. And then the stalking at the end afterwards is like really concerning, and it sucks because I feel like there's almost nothing you can do about that until somebody actually does something really bad. So I hope everything works out for you. This is maybe you need to get the fuck out of that small town. I'm not sure. A train ride with a gross neckbeard. This happened a few months back while I was waiting for a train home. Although most of my university buddies are from different cities, none of them take the same train as I do, which means I mostly travel alone. I don't know why, but a lot of people tend to ask me for directions, so talking with strangers while I wait for the train isn't that unusual. This time, however, I was sitting alone not paying much attention to the people around me when someone suddenly says hello and sits right next to me. Thinking this is another person that needs help, I politely say hi and wait for them to tell me where they're going. Then, out of nowhere, this guy just casually grabs my hand and kisses it like he's some kind of knight in a medieval movie or something. I can't even describe how much I felt my skin crawl when his nasty, dry lips made contact with my arm. I've never experienced something this gross in my life. I was honestly in so much shock from that moment that I didn't even think of getting up and leaving. For some reason, my dumb and polite brain stayed put. I just honestly didn't know what to do, so I sat there talking to a guy trying to think of something. Spoilers, I didn't think of anything and instead listened to his weird-ass life story about how he was returning from his girlfriend back to his wife. Yes, this greasy bastard apparently had a wife that he was openly cheating on, and he felt completely comfortable with telling all of this to a stranger. If that wasn't weird enough, he politely asked for my age. I didn't tell him my exact age, just that I was in my 20s. And how old was he, you may ask? He was 40. Once again, no shame in admitting that to a random girl he just met. Okay, I feel like admitting that you're 40 is much less weird than admitting that you're cheating on your wife, which you probably didn't have a wife or a girlfriend, but anyway. After that unnecessary information dump, he complimented me and then proceeded to ask for my number or if I want his. At that point, I just immediately shot him down, straight up telling him that would be weird, and I left it at that. He tried a couple of times after that, saying, "Are you sure you don't want my number?" And I turned him down every time. Right after that uncomfortable exchange, I heard the intercoms announce my train would be arriving at a different platform from the one I was waiting at. This seemed like the perfect moment to escape this creep, but what do you know, he followed me to the other platform and on the way told me he was taking the same train. Luckily for me, he wasn't getting off at the same stop, so I would just have to survive the train ride and then I'd be free. But a miracle happened while I was looking for my reserved seat. I found my seat, and to my horror, the seat right next to me was empty. I could see it on his face, how happy he was to sit right next to me. But as soon as he sat down, a girl came over and said the seat that he was sitting on had her reservation on it. In the end, he got defeated, and thanks to the train being absolutely packed with people, he had to go look for a free seat into a completely different car. I sighed in relief and quietly thanked the girl for saving me from that creep. After that gross experience, I was happy to talk to someone normal on my way back, and I purposefully left the train on the opposite side just so I didn't bump into that creep again. Lesson for everyone who travels alone. Always be around a group of people, or better yet, have a friend with you to prevent these creeps from getting to you. Yeah, this story is very strange. I would feel deeply uncomfortable, and that girl at the end is the real MVP for just hopping in there and kind of fixing the situation. But the whole wife-girlfriend thing is weird. It almost comes off to me as like a scammer that like emails people and like leaves typos and mistakes in there to like target the most vulnerable people who might not do their due diligence when they receive something sketchy. Like, he's trying to target people who are like looking to cheat, maybe looking to do something sketchy. But yeah, definitely a creepy dude. Don't like him. Don't like it at all. Glad he got out of it. This one's called Mage Beard. Longtime lurker here. I've been wanting to share this story for ages. Enjoy. This happened a few months ago on the day of the eclipse back in April. I, 28 female, work as a stripper in a mid-sized US city. I've seen the absolute worst of men in my job, from explaining my degree to me, I'm a grad student, to insulting my coworkers in an effort to impress, to tipping with a rolled up napkin. I thought I was long past being surprised by male depravity. The day of the eclipse, I was proven to be very, very wrong. I popped in the club on the afternoon in question for a short day shift. The place was not happening. It seemed like everyone was out enjoying the eclipse. Everyone, that is, except one loner at the bar. I put my game face on and approached. This guy was large. Not pudgy, not chubby, but large. He took up his entire bar stool and some of the ones next to it. He wore thick glasses, a balding pate, P-A-T-E, I do not know what that word means, and the kind of beard favored by blobbish men, which I like to call the chinulacrum. Chin/simulacrum. This is confusing to me already. I'm already lost. You know the one. The thin, expertly shaped trail of hair tracing the remains of a long buried jawbone, creating false definition between the neck and the face. This guy's was honestly impressive. Full marks for precision. I squeezed next to his cheeks, asked the bartender for a glass of water, and went to work. "What do you do for a living?" I asked after short introductions were made. "Magic," he said. He did not elaborate. What a baller way to answer a dull question. At first I thought he must be talking about Magic the Gathering, with which I have some experience, although I couldn't think of how that could possibly constitute a living. I probed. "Magic, like the strategy card game?" "No, I'm a mage, a caster. I practice witchcraft." Well, well, what a way to turn a dead shift entertaining. All of a sudden I was, and I cannot stress this enough, here for it. This was about to become one of my most memorable days at the strip club. I engaged full throttle. "That's amazing. I've never met a mage before. What brings you in today?" Let me preface his response by saying I've heard every answer in the book to this question. For whatever reason, a lot of customers want to pretend like they're not in to see strippers. Responses range from, "Oh, I just wanted a drink, I didn't know this was a strip club," to, "I know the bartender, I don't come here for the girls," and anywhere in between. None of that could prepare me for what I was about to encounter. "I'm sheltering from the eclipse, you see." And here he turned to me with wide eyes, shifting massively on his 3 stools. Okay, I need a pause here. How are you taking up 3 stools? Like, I'm a very large guy. How close are these stools together? Like, did he put them within inches of one another? Because, like, even the largest rear end is only taking up 2 stools. I think the 3 stools is a bridge too far. I don't believe it, but let's continue with the story. "If I'm exposed to the energy of the heavens today, bad things will happen. It could be dangerous for everyone in our state." Holy shit, yes, please say more. Oh my god, why? "I'm too strong. The eclipse will magnify my powers to unforeseen levels, and our state is the most magical spot in the US. It's why I live here. These 3 things combined, you wouldn't survive." I consider myself an excellent conversationalist, especially after stripping my way through college, but I was already way out of my depth here. His statements hung awkwardly in the air, stewing until he spoke again. "There's another reason I came here." He was once again looking at me with wide eyes. "To meet you." Oh? I could think of nothing else to say. "Yes, I've long had a talent for knowing where I'm supposed to be, when important events are happening. I knew you'd be here. The universe," he slid his eyes up and down me, and suddenly I was back in familiar territory, "knows I like redheads. And strippers." It was fate. I got into my stride then. He ordered us a couple of drinks, and I sat for probably about an hour engaged in the most fascinating, unhinged, absolutely fucking bonkers conversation I've ever had in my life. He spun a picture of his life that seemed compiled of equal parts spy movies, comic books, and video game plot lines. As best as I can remember it, this is his tale. Magebeard was born in our state to poor parents whom he never knew. He was taken as a baby from his family to the CIA because the government had clocked an unusual amount of magic in him. He was trained as a child in the art of magic, magic with a K, and quickly rose to the top ranks of CIA mages. He rose so high, in fact, that he was able to break ties with the CIA and go on the run. The government pursued him relentlessly, but their power was no match for his. He ran away to the mountains of Peru and lived as a free man for 2 years among the Quechua people. Magebeard struck a deal with our government, wherein he would be allowed to live free from them, but he was confined to our state. This is of course not a problem because, you'll remember, our state is the most magical. They set him up with housing. Okay, so that makes no sense. Let's just slow down there for a second. If Magebeard is actually insanely powerful, and the government has to restrict him to one state, why would they pick the most magical state? That just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I'm starting to not really believe you here, Magebeard. It was believable up to this point. They set him up with housing and a phone plan and instructed him not to wander. And here's where it kicks up a notch, because the phone plan they gave him is from the company Q-Link. As we know, Magebeard was top of his class, magic-wise. This put him in a unique position of power, not only over the American government, but over the American populace. For, you see, Magebeard is not only the highest-powered magic user in our country, he is also, hold on to your hats, Q. The Q. From, that conspiracy community. I'm not going to get into it, but let's just continue with the story. They have a sense of humor, he laughed as he flashed me his phone screen, showing the Q-Link logo on the top right corner. If you're unfamiliar with the company Q-Link, they provide wireless service to people who qualify for things like welfare and disability. Hopefully you're starting to see what's going on here. Magebeard is rebranding to the lowest points of his life in an epic way. Honestly, props. I was honestly honored that the famed and elusive Q had chosen to reveal his identity to me, a plain old stripper, and I couldn't help but ask why. "You're not just a stripper, though," he said emphatically. "You're the one that I was supposed to meet. And you're a witch." Goodness, I had no idea. He went on to explain that I radiated magical energy, and that he could help me hone my powers. That is, if I were brave enough. Spoiler alert, I'm not. The conversation then turned to me, and this is where it started to get really neckbeardy, because Magebeard had a habit that is extremely common among strip club patrons. He was an "I know you" guy. If you're unfamiliar with this behavior, it's when a man meets a woman and then proceeds to try to impress her by telling her all the things he picked up about her just by looking. These men are never accurate. They are, however, extremely easy to fool. Once Magebeard finally remembered to ask me about myself, and subsequently informed me that he already knew everything about me, I started feeding him morsels of untruth. I told him my family were Ashkenazi Jews. Ah yes, I saw the nose immediately. We're not Jewish, Ashkenazi, or otherwise. Not a drop of Hebrew blood runs through my veins. I told him I was born in Eastern Europe and immigrated with my family when I was 5. "Of course, I thought there was something a little different about you. You're obviously not American." "American, born and raised." I told him I studied computer science. "Yes, you have a logical mind. You're obviously very good at math." "I suck sweaty balls at math. My degree is in archaeology." I told him I did jujitsu. "Yes, I spotted it immediately. You're a fighter. Your core and back are strong." "Yeah, dude, from pole dancing." You get the picture. He was an arrogant douchebag. Then we started talking about dating. I learned about his last girlfriend, who had also been a red-headed stripper. He described to me a profound love, marred only by the fact that she was a CAI agent who overfed him and made him fat in order to restrict his mobility, so that the government could keep easier tabs on him. Come to think of it, the whole time we talked, we were surrounded by agents. Those 2 guys that just came in, agents watching him. That dancer, agent. Bartender, also an agent. We were practically besieged. None of them made any moves, though. They wouldn't. They knew he was too powerful to take down. As we talked about romance, he became convinced that I was in love with him. Now, as a stripper, feigning affection for assholes is a skill that I have and utilize. But this was something else. He kept telling me, "You're falling for me. I can see it in your eyes." A dancer passed by and said hi to me, and when she was gone, he patted my shoulder and said with that same wide-eyed look, "Don't be jealous. I don't want her. I only want you." She hadn't even spoken to him. He rounded off our time together by buying a few lap dances, but honestly at this point I was so enthralled by his whole deal that he could have walked out and I would have still been satisfied with my experience. He didn't have much cash, so I gave him my stripper cash app. He paid the lap dance price and tipped extravagantly on top of that. All thanks to that sweet, sweet deal with the CIA money. Days after our encounter, I noticed some payments coming in on my Cash App. I use a different Cash App account for my stripper money, and I had been away from the club for a bit, so I was surprised to see the money coming in from that account. It was Magebeard, sending me payment after payment with little romantic notes attached. I sent him a note back thanking him for his patronage, but letting him know I wasn't interested in seeing him. The payments stopped, but he didn't rescind the ones that he'd already made, and for that, I'm actually quite grateful. It's tough out there, even for magic folk. This is a very interesting story. Obviously, everything within the story is very far-fetched. I don't believe that Magebeard actually experienced all this stuff, but I think the fact that it's like another character in the story telling the far-fetched tales makes it more interesting than just the narrator telling some sort of fantastical tale, so it makes it more believable. And I think there's a universe in which, like, if you've met one of those people who's just a liar, like a pathological or compulsive liar, that you push them for answers on stuff and they just keep making up explanations over and over again. Like, I could see somebody telling a story in this vein. So, good story overall, I would say. Yo, thanks for hanging out. It's good to be back. If you didn't see the last video, I've been super busy. My band's going on a US tour, 23 cities and stuff. The poster's here if you're interested at all. But yeah, I'm making videos. And hi and goodbye. And I'll see you soon. Stay hydrated, drink water, skate on, be swaggy, be shaggy.